thanks everyone for coming to this. So this is something new we're trying. It's like a discussion panel. We've not done this before, but we thought actually it's a really nice space to have a quick discussion around some of the things going on in the community. We've got a meetups discussion going on later, but this one's about Umbraco Cloud. We're going to try and cover the different ways that everyone's using Umbraco Cloud. It's not a very structured session. There's no real questions that we need to answer. It's just we'll hear from everyone about kind of how they're using it, their experiences with it, problems that they've had, and how they've overcome them. So we have Dave Woestenborghs here. We've got Imran, he's my colleague. We work at Cogworks. And we've got Mark Bowser from ProWorks in the US. ProWorks recently posted an article in Scrift about how they are doing their Umbraco Cloud setup, so we thought it would be really great to have someone from there on the panel. Okay, so maybe to kick off, should we just go down the panel and just say what your experience with cloud is, how you're using it, what you're using it for?
Hello everybody, I'm Dave Woestenborghs. I work for Colors in the Netherlands. Do you hear me, by the way? Okay. So, yeah, we just started out doing cloud, I think this summer. Started with our own company website, and it's just a small team, me and my colleague Jeroen. But we were knowing that we are going to do other customers on the cloud with bigger development teams, and we saw some issues happening for us internally that were not entirely matching our normal development process. Like we have pull requests in place, and that's what something that we needed to solve. And I got in touch with the guys from ProWorks because I think it was Jason, he tweeted, we have a good workflow for Umbraco Cloud. So maybe I can tell something about that later, or Mark can do something. And most important, tell you what issues we had and how we solved them. So that's me.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Okay, hi, I'm Imran from the Cogworks, and we have a few cloud projects we're working on, but recently we realized that maybe our structure and approach isn't the best way and the best standards that we could be doing it. So in the last few weeks we've been trying to, from the ground up, rebuild our whole cloud structure and how we use it. And right now we're in the middle of an investigation of some of the problems, how to fix some of the problems that we've come across while using it in the past. And yeah, in the last few weeks we've been doing work on that to try to fix it, and we'll talk a bit more about that later.
Hey, I'm Mark from ProWorks. We are still in the beginnings of using the cloud with our clients. I believe we have 2 clients that we're still doing work for on the cloud right now. And we had a couple, we tried it out at first with some really, really small ones. And we've been trying to figure out some processes, some ways to work with the cloud that fit more with the way that we already work. And that's what we're trying on our actual new ProWorks site that we're trying to get out. And so that's what we're doing right now.
Okay, fantastic. So we've got a pretty good idea of what you guys are using it for. I think the consensus is like small to medium sites right now, and we're only trying it on a couple of things, so no one's all out using cloud yet. Cool. Okay, so something that's particularly interesting, especially to us at Cogworks, is automation. So we want to have like an automated build process and automated deployments for everything. So I'd be interested to know how you have fit Umbraco Cloud into your automated processes, if you have at all.
Yeah. I don't know if everybody is familiar with clouds, but you get a repository from, it's a Git repository when you clone it locally, and it's actually, you have a compiled website in there, so you actually have your DLLs and everything in there. So if you have your own custom code, you need to use your own Git repository for that, and so you work actually working with 2 repositories, and that makes it, for us, we have a normal process. Developer makes a pull request for a new feature, somebody reviews it, gets merged into the master branch, and then the build starts to deploy it to our test environment. And that's something we couldn't do out of the box with cloud. And for a small team, I think you can work with cloud as well. There needs to be some discipline, but we also work with larger teams. And then I started looking for a solution for that, and I tried several different routes, and then the solution from ProWorks came for us, and now we have something that really works. So we actually have everything in our repository, and we copy stuff over to the Git repository from cloud and have the deployment done by Team City. So when something changes in our master branch, it builds everything, copies it to it checks out the cloud repository, and then pushes that again. So it's not a perfect solution, but it works really well for us. And actually, it's almost the same that as you guys. Instead, we do not use Octopus deploy. So yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So for those that don't know, on Umbraco Cloud you can have several environments. The basic plan has just a live environment. It's just like a Umbraco Cloud hosted site. There is an option then to add 2 other environments in. You can add a staging environment, so you can preview your content changes and your code changes there, and then you can promote those up to the live environment. There's also a development environment that you can add into that as well, so you can have like another step in that process if you wanted, somewhere where only the developers will push their code and break things, and then content editors can just see staging, which is the finished product. It'd be good to hear from Mark actually on how you're doing your stuff, given that Dave's using a similar thing.
So what ProWorks is trying to do is we regularly work with TeamCity and Octopus Deploy. So we have Bitbucket or GitHub, but we mostly use Bitbucket. And we will push our code up into feature branches in our forks of the repository and pull request those into the master repository. And TeamCity will grab those changes and build it. It'll make a NuGet package out of it. Octopus will grab that and deploy it. So that's kind of the regular way that we work. And we wanted to have the same sort of deal with the cloud. And so kind of at least my mindset with the way that we set up the project with the cloud is it's kind of like when you have like your Sass and your CSS or your .cs and your DLLs. We have like our proworks.core project in the solution. And it's where all of our source for the whole site lives. And we have, for our local machines, so we can test it, we have like build events that just Xcopy. They build and Xcopy everything into the proworks.web so we can run it. And we never actually check any of that stuff straight into the cloud. So nobody, like the way that you'd regularly work with the cloud is you'd basically take that release build and you'd push it up to the cloud. We just take our source, the proworks.core, and some of the courier or Umbraco deploy pieces that are necessary to get the data types and document types deployed, and we put those in Bitbucket. And we don't commit anything in the proworks.web. And we have TeamCity build that and NuGet it, give it to Octopus Deploy. Octopus Deploy runs a bunch of PowerShell that will unpackage our NuGet. It will clone the repo from the cloud so we can get the latest and all the upgrades that Umbraco's done. We deploy our code over that, and we commit that and push it back up. So Octopus is actually building the project and committing it to the Git repo that the cloud has. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. So there are a couple interesting snags with that, or possible cases where you might run into problems. One of them that we just ran into is we're using how familiar is everybody with Octopus Deploy? A couple people. Okay, so there's a tool we use called Octopack that helps us build the NuGet package, and it makes that pretty easy. And it's causing some problems where so Umbraco will upgrade from 7.6.2 to 7.6.3, let's say, and we'll clone that, and we'll trample all their DLLs with our DLLs and kind of mess up the upgrade. So there are some cases where you have to be careful, but.
Yeah, so actually it'd be interesting to know how you guys do handle that. So is it just you pull it down and realize it's all screwed up and then have to fix it, or do you kind of preemptively wait for these updates to happen and then make sure that you apply your patches? Have you turned the automated updates off, or are you still utilizing them?
So if you feel free to interrupt me at any point, I'll just keep going.
We noticed the same problem. We overwrote an automated upgrade on the cloud because our code was still using the previous version and we didn't know about it. So now we have an agreement. We don't merge anything on Tuesday when they roll out stuff. That's it. And then you know when the rollout is complete, then we clone. That is the only time that we actually clone the repository from cloud again to get the update and update our own code. And then we push it. But now we have an agreement, don't merge on Tuesday. We are actually thinking about having that automated, that it is Tuesday that you cannot deploy. But I was talking to, I don't know if it was Sebastian or Stefan that told me that yesterday, blame the peers. But he said you can actually ask Morten to set up a pull request to your own GitHub repository when they have done the upgrade on your project. So I'm definitely going to contact Morten to see if that's possible.
Yeah, that's something that I know Paul Sterling's spoken about before, being able to, when they do an upgrade, automatically pull requests to your code repo and say, hey, here's the latest version of Umbraco for you. I've not seen it in action, and I'd love to, so maybe worth hounding Morten for that.
Another short-term solution we're going to try is just being more careful with maybe not using Octopack that automatically NuGets everything for us, and building the NuGet package ourselves so that we don't include any of the Umbraco DLLs in our deploy so we don't trample anything. But I do like that idea of just not deploying on Tuesdays. If we can know, I didn't realize that Umbraco
was the most
on
easy
Tuesdays.
fix.
So it'd be good to hear from the Cogworks side how we are dealing with cloud.
Yeah, I mean, our solutions are similar to the ones these guys have spoken about, but
Speak up.
oh, you guys can hear me? Crap. How about now? Okay, cool. Yeah, we have similar solutions to what these guys were talking about, but for us, our main investigation now is just a better way of syncing the folders, because we know the trickiest part is just having the application.web and then having our own source-controlled version of that, and making sure the important things like views and CSS are synced between them. So we've investigated using it with Xcopies on builds. We've done some PowerShell scripts at the beginning when you do the UAS clone to bring them down and sync them. Recently, in the last 2 weeks, we've tried using some grunt scripts and some Node.js to have file watchers on the file, so that if a change happens in application.web, it will reflect that on our other folder to have that in. So for us, it's just more of an investigation now of the best way to track and sync these things together. And I had a chance to speak to Sebastian and Niels about it yesterday, and they said, yeah, there's no perfect solution for it right now, but I think everyone's just having the same problem with the syncing of the folders. So we all know what to do afterwards. We have a similar approach with our Team City and Octopus for building afterwards. It's just whilst we're in the development process, we're just trying to find the best way now of working in that environment before it gets to the build.
Yeah, because like everyone has mentioned, you kind of want to retain views, CSS, etc. in your source control somewhere, somehow. And with cloud right now, that's all stored in the web project, which is not in your source control. You want to be able to create pull requests and things for a change, get them code reviewed, and then rolled out. So everyone's seemingly come up with inventive ways of making sure that we can do that. And it would be good to see a standardized approach. As Imran has just said, it doesn't look like there is one. There's various different ways of us working with cloud. And it's just kind of whatever works for you. We've found that having a separated folder and copying them in seems to be the best way, as everyone has said. I think it would be good to talk about from an editor's point of view using cloud. So until recently, when we restructured our Umbraco cloud solution, we weren't really utilizing Umbraco deploy properly. We weren't doing content deployments. We were just creating all the content on production. And in kind of an old way, we would just pull the database off production onto our local environments to work with that. And if we needed to push content up, well, we'd probably just create it on production when we deployed, that sort of thing. Kind of clunky. We're not utilizing Umbraco Cloud then for its full potential. We were using it as just a hosting platform, and it's a little bit more than that. So I'd be interested to know how you guys are dealing with content editors, and if you guys have trained them up on utilizing cloud to promote content between environments.
We only have one project running now on there. We're starting a new one next week. But we actually told the editors, you can do it on staging, and when we are ready to go real live, we can just push the content. You can do it yourselves. The button is there, so and they're actually very happy about it. And also it helps us because we can pull the content down to our local development environment. You always have the latest content the client is working on, so it makes it easier also to fix bugs because you have the same content as the client has. And it's just for them pushing one button, and they were really happy about it, that they could move content between their environments. They are coming from another CMS, and they said, yeah, this is what we always wanted, but never got. They were using Orchard, I think. So they were really happy, but actually for editors, except for the content moving between the environments, nothing changes. It's just Umbraco like you always have.
Yeah.
So.
I'm probably the least interesting person to hear from on this point because I haven't had the feedback from the content editors yet. I know on their very first super small site that we stuck on the cloud, after we went live, we just took away the multiple environments because they had a super small, simple site and didn't need the deploy, and that worked for them, but that's not super interesting, probably.
Again, not a lot of experience me doing the content side of it either, so not a lot to add.
Yeah, I demoed the Umbraco Cloud content migrations to our project management team the other day, and they were really impressed with it. And it's kind of a shame we haven't put it in their hands sooner because, yeah, we've just not really found a way to use it. We're only using Cloud for a couple of small sites, and namely, mostly our company site and the festival sites, that sort of thing. So we haven't really had too much time to properly get it in the hands of editors. Okay, cool. So maybe just talking about some of the issues we've come up against and some solutions. What would you say is your biggest pain point with Cloud, and have we got any ideas of how we could try and solve those?
Yeah, I know what my biggest pain point is going to be. Now we are going to put version 1 of a website live, and we are going further developing version 2. But if there needs to be a bug fix that needs to be rolled out on version 1 on the live site, I don't know how to do that, because the only thing you can do is transfer all your changes.
Yes.
And I posted a question on the forum a while ago, and Sebastian had an explanation about that. It's really cumbersome. Then you need to rename your master branches and reset it to the last version on live, but it's a lot of work. So it will probably break. So I don't know how to solve this problem yet.
Like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Rolling back a deployment on cloud is incredibly difficult, or introducing a change that maybe is kind of skipping ahead of a version that's currently in development is very, very difficult to do.
One of the biggest problems for us, the whole reason we started at the Cogworks to think about redoing our cloud structure is because if you're not doing it right to begin with, you're just always going to run into problems. And one of the problems we kept having was inconsistencies between what we deployed and what we had. There'd be changes that were just done on cloud, and a lot of it you can't help but because of the updates and the automated nature of it, but a lot of it was from us not deploying everything right, so that's why we started to rebuild it and do it that way. And then since doing this investigation, as I said, the biggest pain point now is just the best way of syncing the folders. Other than that, we've kind of got this solution that we've all kind of agreed on, so just the syncing of the folders for now.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those that didn't hear, the question was, at what point do you decide to put a site onto cloud? And I think it's a really good question. I know Umbraco have said that a well-built site on cloud should be able to handle 1.5 million users in a month, unique visitors in a month, without any issues. And I can believe that. For the sites, like if you were to build a basic Umbraco site, it could probably handle 10 times that. I think, and this is me speaking from my personal view, I think that actually us working in agencies, we have perhaps overcomplicated the workflow of these things slightly. If you were building, let's say, a site for your own project, you might just be able to work with all the tools that cloud give you absolutely fine. Kind of, yeah, if you're going to try and enforce like your internal dev processes on cloud, they've got a specific way of working, we've got maybe a slightly different way of working, and they maybe don't always match up, because everyone, even in this room, I'm sure there's people with slightly different processes to the people on stage right now, so they don't always match up. I don't see any reason why you couldn't run a reasonable sized site on cloud if you so wanted to. I know that Umbraco are intending to release Umbraco Deploy as a separate standalone solution. So you'll be able to bake that into, say, a solution hosted on Azure or something, and gain the benefits from cloud of content migrations. Not the automated upgrades, that's a kind of benefit, but I'm not really sure how to answer that question.
So for me, one of the huge benefits is the automatic upgrades, because for us, like upgrades are a big deal. Because pulling it down, there's running through it, and like I don't just automatically like take all the files from the upgrade. I'm like carefully going through, making sure everything's right. Like upgrades are kind of an ordeal, and so for smaller clients, trying to keep them on the latest version is like we periodically, like once a year, maybe we'll come back and upgrade them, and by the time the upgrade's finished, there's like another small version ahead of it. So the automatic upgrades are pretty cool, and to me, those are even cooler than the Umbraco deploy. One of the reasons, like one of the smells you can get from a site that means it might not work in the cloud very well is if you have a lot of document type inheritance. If that gets really complicated, that can be more difficult for deploy than if you have just all compositions. So there's sometimes where we look at a site and we're like, this might be kind of nasty if we start using deploy with it. Another thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that if you want to load balance your site, the cloud might not be the best place to go.
Yeah, if I'm correct, they do not do load balancing. You just get one instance, but I don't know if it's allowed. I did a performance test last week on one, and I got pretty amazing numbers. I don't think load balancing is needed with how they can run sites. So.
I know there is an enterprise level option, so if you were to contact Umbraco, they would be able to spin up like a specific instance specific to your requirements. And I guess I'm pretty sure Paul Sterling did mention that it is possible to have a load balance environment. They will just have to set it up for you, and you'll pay them a lot of money to do that. A reasonable sum, not a lot of money.
But actually, I did a test. I don't know if it's allowed, Anders, but I did a performance test on a cloud environment, and I just released 10,000 concurrent users on it, and it didn't went down.
That's fantastic.
If you have a lot of connections to external tools and maybe external tools pushing to your content to your website, maybe cloud is not the best solution. I don't know. I know you can whitelist a lot of IPs there. You can manage the security, but maybe for some sites it's not the best solution. But I don't know the tipping point. I have to find out, I think.
Yeah. As Paul has said, it's just whatever you feel kind of comfortable with doing. If you feel it could work on cloud, build it on cloud. If you're not entirely sure, ask HQ. They may give you some guidance, but do what you feel comfortable with. You don't want to be lumped with a big site running on a platform that you don't understand, or a big site that you can't maintain properly. Do what you feel comfortable with.
One of the main reasons for us to move to cloud was also the baseline sites. So you can create, I think everybody at some point had a starter kit site where they started their sites from, but you always need to, we need to start a new site. First we need to upgrade the starter kit and stuff like that. And in cloud you can have the baseline site, it's automatically upgraded, and you just start a new project from that and have all the main functionality that most websites have immediately in there. And that can also be a tipping point for customers to go there, because it saves a lot of hours of building that. If you do not have cloud and you do not have a starter kit, you need to go and copy and paste everything from another project and change it. So that takes this time that they can save. And I actually have numbers about that. But for us, it was about a new project estimation. It was about between 50 and 70 hours with setting up Team City for their own servers and stuff. Yeah, we have a pretty extensive baseline. So it saved them a lot of time, and that was a tipping point for them to move to cloud, because they wanted to host themselves, and now they say, oh, we are going to cloud now.
Yeah, something that I know from from personal clients that I've recommended Umbraco Cloud to. It's not only something I've always said to them is like, the platform's always going to get better. So features like the baselines will come out, and you instantly benefit from those. Whereas if you're hosting it on a server, an update comes out where you've got to apply those updates, install this new software, swap Team City out for something completely different because you've decided it's better. Whereas cloud is standardized, it's got a team supporting it. It's really good. The other thing is actually the pricing structure is super transparent. It's 25 euros for an environment, 20 euros for an environment after that. So explaining that to a client is really, really easy. Whereas Azure, you've got to say, oh, well, you need this sized instance, and you need a database, and you need all these little things, and you're going to need to pay a couple of pounds or dollars extra a month for this and this and this, and it just gets ridiculously complicated to the point the client doesn't care or just decides it's not worth paying for. I think there's some other limitations as well on the kind of. We're talking on the simple plan here. If you were to go for the unlimited plan, it's completely unlimited. You have as many as you want. I think there's also a similar restriction on content nodes. Someone from HQ may be able to correct me on that. Don't quote me. There's some limitations, but as Bob correctly says, 1,000 nodes is quite a lot. If you're building a site with 1,000 nodes, well, you probably want a little bit more support and whatever, and in which case you're better off going for the unlimited plan. A bit more expensive, but well worth it because you've got all that extra stuff. So perhaps there's some need for some support from HQ on how we can accurately sell this to clients and maybe some guidance. I'm not sure.
I think some of the problems we're having developing the cloud sites as well is kind of masking the tipping point of when you should do it. Like, to get back to what Andy was saying with his question, I think once there's probably a better, more standardized approach that everyone agrees on, and we find it a bit easier, then maybe it will be a bit simpler to see the tipping point of when you should use it over. But right now, I think unfortunately a lot of the development issues we're encountering is maybe masking it a bit of how easy it should be.
Yeah, agreed. So we're basically at time. Thank you for coming. Out of interest in the audience, who isn't using cloud? Is not using cloud. Fantastic. Okay, so we've got some free cloud subscriptions to give away. Free for a year. So it would be great to speak to you guys afterwards. Come up and we can sign you up to that. It's courtesy of Umbraco HQ. Very kindly have donated that. So we would, we'd love to put it in your hands and see if you guys can play around with that. Cool. Yeah, thank you to our panelists, and thank you all for coming along. I hope this has been semi-helpful. Cool. Cheers.